Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be telling you a more personal story. It's my facial mole story, and if you can't tell, I'm kind of at the beach. I'll show you. This is the water, and I picked a nice little chill, quiet spot to just talk. So I first saw my facial mole visible when I was about 11 or 12 years old. I honestly didn't pay much attention to it until people started to point it out. When you're a kid, you don't really notice like people's appearances or how people look. You just kind of like want to play with the other kids, and looks aren't really a priority. I started getting bullied at school by this kid named, let's just call him Keenan, and he would always point out my facial mole and he'd be like, gross, does it have hairs on it? I would be sitting beside Keenan and my friends would overhear, and they were not good friends. They would also laugh along with him, so you know I had to drop them fast. Also, these friends of mine, they would also like steal food from me, so they were not good at all. Anyways, I remember back then I was super quiet. I would not stick up for myself at all. I was so quiet. I'd barely say anything until I started taking Seroquel in college. I started to talk a lot more and express my opinions and stand up for myself a lot more. I had really bad social anxiety back then, and I remember in class in grade 8 I had to sit beside Keenan, and I had to sit beside him like he would be on this side, like sitting here on this side because my facial mole used to be here. So he would sit on that side. I guess the teacher like assigned seats, and I remember one time in French class he started making fun of me and he wanted to like feel my facial mole, which was super rude, and he was like, when are you getting it removed? You should get it removed, it could be cancerous. And like in my head I was like, you should just mind your own business and stop making fun of me because I'm about to cry. So this girl in front of me like turned around and she was like, Keenan, you're being so rude, I'm trying to learn. And I'm pretty sure Rose doesn't appreciate you like telling her that or being so rude to her about it. And then if Keenan wasn't like making fun of me with the facial mole, he would be talking to me, but he would only be staring at it, so his eyes would only be like staring right there. And I find that so rude. Like, he's so judgmental. And I remember that year I searched online like how to get rid of a facial mole, and in the washroom I secretly started to shave it down like super hard and try to like get rid of it. And all it didn't get rid of it. All it did was like make it so swollen, and like a little bit of pus would come out. And then a couple hours later it went down, but it basically just got swollen, so shaving it does not work. Besides school, when I would go to Christmas parties like to see my family, there would always be like an aunt or uncle that would say, oh, I didn't know you had a mole on your face, or oh, you have a beauty mark. And also like when I would go to family parties with like, you know, like second cousins or like people that I didn't really know but they were like family, and they would always like not remember my siblings' names, but they would remember mine because I had like the mole. They wouldn't say it out loud, but they would, like, that's how I thought, and that's what I basically knew that was the reason like they remembered my name. Even when I would take the TTC, people would always stare. If there were children like with their parents, they would always ask their parents like, oh, or they would point at me and they'd be like, oh, what's that? And the parents would answer them, and it would be like sometimes rude. They'd be like, oh, she just has a mole. And I feel like mole, like, it just sounds cancerous, it sounds scary, and yeah, people always said mole. I always preferred to say dot or birthmark, or even beauty mark. Beauty mark sounds better. I remember in high school I would be talking to teachers like close up, and their eyes would only be like on my facial mole, and I find that so rude. Like, can't you look at me in the eyes? And then even in like interviews, like I would go to interviews and the interviewers would be so nice, but they would only be like looking here, like where my facial mole was, and I would answer the questions and then like they would only be looking there. And so in my head I already knew like I didn't get the job, and I didn't. But in all honesty, it wasn't all bad. I actually made like real genuine friends who would actually look at me in the eyes. They would not mention it, they would not make fun of me, they would like literally like want to get to know me, and I love them so much. Like, I still talk to them and we still hang out, and yeah, they're the best. Guys that I dated actually saw no problem with my facial mole. They actually liked girls with like a facial mole on their face. Also, I used to teach preschool and kids would never mention it, or they would never be scared of me. Parents didn't care. But I did have this girl that I saw outside of work, and she had an older sister, and the little girl said hi to me, and I was like, hey, and then the older sister like gave me this disgusted like look. And then the following week when I went back to preschool to teach, I saw the little girl, and the little girl like asked me, she was like, what is that on your face? It looks like caca, ew. And I already knew, like, because her older sister like was probably judging me and was probably like, ew, what is that? And she probably told her little sister like, oh, your teacher has that thing, like it looks like caca. And I literally like, I wanted to cry, but I just like laughed it off because, like, you know, she doesn't really know, she's just a little kid. And I had another coworker there as well, so I literally like, I was like, whatever, like I'll just like laugh this off, like it's just a birthmark. All I said was like, oh yeah, it's just a birthmark. I remember this one time I went to the grocery store and I walked by this guy with vitiligo, and I literally like, I didn't stare at all, I just like walked by. In that moment, like walking by him, I saw his facial reaction or his facial expression, and he was like avoiding people's eye contact. He was looking at the ground like trying to get away, and that's exactly how I feel every time like people stare or I'm in like a public place and like you could tell people are judging you. And I just wish like people would not judge people's appearance so much, because like we're all different, we're all unique. As long as we're all like healthy, that's all that should matter. And I feel like people should like focus more on other people's character and their soul and their spirit rather than like how we look. Like that's so shallow. I remember when I used to work at the Rogers Center, I was being overworked and I was like dealing with like food, and there was a lineup and there's these two adult men who started staring at me, and they were in line to get like wait for food. And they pointed at my facial mole, and I knew they were talking about it because I could hear how loudly they were talking about it. They were like, oh, ew, like what is that on her face? And they started laughing, and I could hear. And I just feel like obnoxious people like who are judgmental, like, were you never taught manners? Like, other people look different, so what? Like, not everyone looks the same. I remember I was like dishing out people's food, and I was literally like about to cry because I was the only one at the stand, and I was being overworked because like there were no other workers at that station, and like they were being so loud and rude about it. And yeah, I still had to help them. I like put it aside because, you know, I'm at work, I gotta make my money. So before college, I decided to get it removed. I actually got it removed in the summertime, and I booked an appointment with my doctor. She measured it, she checked if it was like cancerous, like looked at the borders, and she referred me to a specialist. And then I saw the specialist, and she told me that she had one removed, and like she said she had a hair, like a long hair out of it, and then she like finally got it removed. There's a small scar. They just like cut it, and she basically just measured it. It didn't take that long. They just numb the area and they get rid of it, and they send it off to get tested if it's cancerous, and mine wasn't cancerous. And then they put a gauze on your face and they stitch it up, and then you come back like weeks later and they get rid of the stitches, and there's a little scar. You can actually see it. There it is. It's not really that noticeable. If I put on makeup, you wouldn't even know. When I look back at photos of myself with a facial mole, or like when I was younger, I feel so bad for myself because I knew I didn't have like, I wasn't secure. I was very insecure about it, and I got bullied a lot, and I had to endure that. And I just feel so bad for me. Like, I wish I had someone to look up to who looked like me, or I don't know. I feel like I just wanted someone to talk to about it, and like someone who understood. Honestly, like, I untagged a lot of photos like with me and my friends just because I had like a facial mole then. I deleted so many photos, and yeah, I just don't like looking back at those photos much. If I do use those photos to like, you know, post or something, or like other people use it, I prefer to like ask them to edit out my mole, or I just do it. And yeah, before I went for surgery, I didn't have a cell phone back then, so I had to use my home phone. And I think the secretary called, and she just like wanted confirmation that I was going to be at the appointment. And my dad actually answered, and he's not the confrontational type, and he doesn't like change. So he wrote on like the fridge, and he wrote like, call blah blah this doctor back. and PS, don't do it. And by that message, I knew he knew that I was getting it done because I didn't tell anybody. And yeah, he didn't even tell me at all. Like I just saw the sign, we never spoke about it, and I prefer change. I actually change, like I accept it a lot more than him. He prefers to stay the same. If he doesn't have to change anything about him, he won't. So yeah, my dad actually didn't want me to get it done, but I did anyways, just for myself. And I also want to say, when I would go to this one dentist before, they would be checking my teeth and, like, you know, cleaning my teeth, but like some of the dentists there would always like mention my mole. They'd be like, oh, have you always had that mole near your lip? You know, you're supposed to get it checked every now and then. And in my head, I'd be like, why are you being so weird? Like, I obviously know it's on my face, like what the heck. And yeah, so I stopped going to that dentist's place. I actually go to a different dentist, and the new dentist that I go to is like, their place is so professional, the people are so nice. And yeah, so that dentist place that pointed out my facial mole and made me feel bad about myself, they lost out on business, so whatever. Also, recently I came across this girl, I think her name is Avita, and she has an Instagram, and she has moles all over, and she's so pretty. She's Filipino, and I'll put her Instagram page in in the description box in this video, and you should check her out. She's super pretty. She embraces it because like she has so many, she can't get rid of all of them. I wish I had someone like her to look up to, but I only found out about her like recently, like maybe a couple months ago. I remember back then when I had the facial mole on my face, I would not take many selfies. I would not take pictures like showing my whole face. I'd take like a sideways photo or like a photo showing like half my face. I'll actually put some photos in here or here. Or I would use my phone like in the mirror to like cover up this part. And yeah, I would never post many photos. It is super crazy to see how confident I am now as a person, and how I can post pictures and not really care, or I'm more confident in taking photos of myself. And yeah, with that being said, I will see you guys in another video. Bye. The sun is setting now, so I am going to head on home. So today there's a full moon right there. So pretty. It was so windy earlier when I was coming here, but now it's like nice and calm. The sun is setting. People are playing volleyball still. There's actually a lot of people here even though it's super cold. Every October or like near fall, I always feel like going to the beach. I don't prefer to go to the beach in the summertime. I prefer to go when it's like colder. I have no idea why, but I like watching the waters. The waves crash, and yeah, I just like the colder scene at the beach. I don't know why. Normally because I always come here like at least once a year in the fall. Normally I don't see many people, but today I see so many, even though it's like super cold. Like I was shivering before. My hands are so cold. I wish I brought my gloves.